Benny Lee. I'm one of the founders of NAFI, National Alliance for the Empowerment of the Formerly Incarcerated. I've been given this task just this second ago to come up here, all right, to welcome you. We're waiting on Congressman Davis to come here. How many of y'all pretty much excited, motivated, and feeling empowered for this day? You know, I truly believe in my heart that it's through the grace of a merciful God and a praying mother and a father I know in my heart that didn't give up on me that I'm able to be here this morning. I'm one of the people that you guys are here fighting for on our behalf. You know, I've served time in prison. I've been out now 33 years. Try to be a living example to brothers and sisters that's coming home after me, that life is possible in spite of the barriers that we face. This is our motto here: where does our wrong end and our rights begin? And when you really look at this whole thing about reentry, there's a history to it. You know, starting pretty much in 1865. You know, when Abraham Lincoln first signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1862 to free the slaves. It didn't go anywhere. It finally passed Congress in 1865, and that gave birth to the 13th Amendment of the United States Constitution. And that's what put the nail in the coffin for formerly incarcerated convicted people. Because the 13th Amendment suggests that no person of U.S. citizenship should be subject to slavery or indentured servitude unless otherwise convicted of a crime. So what that does, it puts you back in the state of a slave. And see, right after that, then they came up with these laws. One of them was called a vacancy law, that if you couldn't prove that you had a place to stay or you were employed, that was illegal, and they lock you up. And so they started locking those free slaves up. And then they created what you call a convict leasing program. This was the time when a lot of companies was building railroads and making bricks and cobblestone roads and all those things. They needed labor. So the state would lease out convicts, where the convicts didn't get paid, but the state got paid for leasing them out. That's convict leasing. Today it's called community service. Same thing, community service. So you got to understand the whole history of how people once labeled a convicted person, that they got to earn their way back. Even though I've been out 32 years, and since I've been out, and I was that guy that came out that never worked in my life. At 32, had never worked. Never had a Social Security card, never had a driver's license, right? But I was a guy that had to sit in a GED class at 32 and learn how to do fractions and multiplications with a bunch of kids, 19, 20, laughing at the questions I'm asking, calling me pops, and I want to hit one of them in the eye, but I didn't want to get put out the class. So this is my reentry struggle, you know, to get through that and eventually getting the GED and then learning how to sit down in the class, and became a certified drug abuse counselor. And then eventually the associate's degree in mental health and substance abuse, and then went back and got a bachelor's degree in inner city studies. And by that time, I became a director of a program. You know, then I went back and got my master's degree in leadership development and education, where now, for the last 8 years, I'm a professor at Northeastern Illinois University, right? I'm just one example on how you can stabilize yourself in spite of those barriers. These are called collateral consequences. See, a judge can't just sentence you and say, I'm going to give you so much time in prison, and upon your release, I'm going to restrict you from the right to vote. A judge can't do that. Or I'm going to restrict you from these licenses that you can acquire. A judge can't do that, but once you come out of prison, there's legislation that passed certain bills, and companies set up different policies that serve as disabilities, that disable you from functioning with full citizenship. You know, as a convicted felon, the Second Amendment of the Constitution do not apply to me. I do not have the right to bear arms because of a conviction from over 33 years ago. I mean, when do my wrong end and my rights begin? You know, maybe 3 years ago, the Congressional Black Caucus had a hearing in D.C., and each congressperson had to bring a convicted felon from their state up to testify at this hearing. And I challenged Congress. You know, they would say that we paid our debt to society, right? But if that's the case, why is it in Illinois there's over 80 licenses I can't apply for because of my conviction? Even with my degree, if I walked inside of a Walmart and because of their policy they don't hire convicted felons, I mean, how's that paid? All right? So I suggest to Congress that they need to put the debt in writing. Because right now the debt is not in writing. Or it's a myth. You know, the 13th Amendment said, unless otherwise convicted of a crime, that it can restrict you from all these privileges. But they need to put the debt in writing. And I believe once they put the debt in writing, then if I'm discriminated after that, then that gives me ground to sue anybody for discrimination. See, we had a lot of groups in this country that had to fight for their human rights. Women were one of them. Women couldn't vote. Women couldn't work certain jobs. Women couldn't, even had how many of y'all heard that term, a rule of thumb? What that mean was a man can beat his wife with a stick as long as it's the width of a thumb. That's where that law came, rule of thumb. Did y'all know that? So women had to fight for their rights. And now, because women won fighting for their human rights, women are a protected class. Now, if you try to discriminate against a woman just because she's a woman, she can sue you for discrimination, because they fought for that. The handicapped at one time were discriminated against, but they came together and fought for their human rights. Now you can't go to no public facility without seeing a handicapped parking space or handicapped accessibility. And if a handicapped person denies anything just because they're handicapped, they can sue you for discrimination. They are a protective class, right? Then you got the gay community. They didn't fight for gay rights. They fought for human rights. And so now you can't discriminate against a person just because they're gay, because they're a protective class, And so now you have the formerly incarcerated people that has been convicted, that are unprotected. And see, this is what this is about. How do the formerly incarcerated move to become a protective class? When do our wrong end? Where does our rights begin? See, that's what this is all about. See, I can easily say I'm cool. I got a 5-bedroom home, a wife I've been married to for 30 years, and grandkids, and got retirement plan. I'm straight. But no, it's an African symbol, a Khan symbol called Fufu for Natu, and I got it on my keychain. 2 alligators that share the same stomach. If one eat, they both eat. Yet they fight over food. That's a servant symbol that I received because I'm a rites of passage practitioner. What that means is, as long as there's work to be done in the community, my work is never done. When my brother got a problem, I got a problem, because we connected. So I can't say that I'm totally free from this here. If brothers that's still in prison, fighting to come home, and run into all these barriers, these disabilities that set them up, as Robert Merton, a criminologist, said that it's a strain theory. This is a theory in criminology, that when people find themselves living up under a certain strain, then certain members of that family resort to crime. But when you find a community of people living up under strain, poverty, you're going to see crime. It was Aristotle that said years ago that poverty is the parent of revolution and crime. This ain't new. All right, when we look at in Chicago, I'm from the Austin community. All of Austin is not crime infested. All of Austin is not gang infested. All of Austin is not drug infested. But then when you look at the part of Austin where you find the crime and you find the gangs, that's the part of Austin where, Austin has 4 wards to it. You know how they do this redistricting? The part of Austin where you find most of your crime pretty much is South Austin, because South Austin consists of just the tip of those 4 wards. Like Michael Scott, majority of his ward is in Lawndale, but a tip of his ward is right on the southeast border of Austin. Jason Irvin, majority of his ward is in Garfield, then a tip of his ward is right there on the south part of Austin. Then you got Teleferro. Majority of his is the northwest part of Austin. Then you got Emma Mitz, my sister. A tip of hers over. So in that area, you don't really have a lot of relationships going on with the community organizations, the law enforcement. They get neglected there, and so you have crime there. This is where most of your poverty is right there, because that's like a transit area. People are renting. They don't own homes. See, and this has been scientifically proven. It's called social disorganization. So this is a big old thing here. I mean, in Illinois, they recorded 4 million people in Illinois that got convictions in their background. Now just think if those 4 million people decide to vote the same way. That's a lot of power. Right now, as we sit here this morning in Austin, there's over 760 odd people currently on parole in Austin. It don't take that many people to vote alderman in office or a state representative. So we're talking about power that we have, but we're powerless because we don't come together. And it ain't about me and my colleagues, the formerly incarcerated. It's about our families too. Every member of our organization is a deputy registrar, meaning they sworn in to register people to vote, right? There was a press conference during the primary elections about voting, and my question was, why doesn't the Board of Election let it be known in Illinois that convicted felons can vote in Illinois? Because some people still believe a convicted felon cannot vote in Illinois, right? And it's sad that you got parole agents telling parolees that they can't vote in Illinois. I was trying to register some guys to vote at one of the GO offices on the south side, and them guys said, man, if I register to vote, I can get violated. Because the parole, this is misinformation. And you got people that work in social service, working with formerly incarcerated and convicted people, telling them they can't vote because they're not educated. So it's our job to get in front of this and raise the community awareness of the rights, or at least what little privilege the formerly incarcerated and convicted people have, right? Because a lot of people doing this work on the behalf of formerly incarcerated and convicted people that don't know the difference between parole and probation, the judicial system and the penal system. There's a lot come with that you need to know if you're going to be effective in being an advocate for the formerly incarcerated and convicted person. So hopefully this day is the day where we can make a declaration that we can declare July 3rd is an Independence Day for the formerly incarcerated and convicted person. And even as I said that, what come to mind is, and some of y'all probably read that great speech that Frederick Douglass spoke in Rochester, New York, about the 4th of July, why blacks shouldn't celebrate the 4th of July. Because when this country won its independence, blacks were not included in that celebration. They were still considered 3/5 of a human being, and that was a legal term because the South felt like they had more people and they needed more delegates in D.C., but the North said, no, most of your people are slaves and you don't count them as human beings, so they came to a compromise and said count them as 3/5. So why should we formerly incarcerated and convicted people honor the 4th of July and we have limited citizenship? All right? But I'm finna yield from this podium so they can do whatever they got going over there. Zelina got something cooking up over there, her and Lori Joe. So I'm gonna yield from this podium and y'all hear from me later as the press conference goes on. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Thank you for everyone coming out today on this beautiful holiday evening. My name is Zerlina Smith, and this is Cherish Smith. I'm the Community Outreach for State Representative LaShawn K. Ford, 8th District. Now, he does apologize because he knows how important this budget is, so he couldn't make it today. So he has his loud fighter out here standing with the people. And today, for me, is a day because I live in Austin. Austin has 98% of its returning citizens come back to a community that either looks the same or does not have anything to offer. So when you think of reentry, think of not just reincarcerated, but think holistically of the whole families. We're here to support the families and the community, not just one individual, because that individual coming back home needs to come back home to a family that's welcoming as well in a house. So we're here today, and I need y'all to actually stand up and show that you're excited for being here. Stand up. Stand up. This is hard work. Stand up and cheer that you are here because you have elected officials who are working hard to make sure that these communities and families get the services that they deserve and they need. So when we look around this room, you have the West Side Health Authority, the Good Neighbor Campaign, you have Benny Lee, you have Grill, you have the Salvation Army. You have an abundance of programs that represent this whole city, and I apologize if I miss you. But you got to make sure that you might not be an ex-offender that needs to return back home to a community, but somebody in your family or somebody you know is. So be proud and get this message out, and let's do better to make sure we continue to pack houses, because State Representative LaShawn K. Ford and all our representatives, congressmen, and whomever else you can think of, aldermatic, is fighting. And we're standing here fighting for them, and we support them and everyone else. And I have my 8-year-old here to know that this is her fight as well. Thank you. And I want to introduce the first speaker, Sherry Runner, the president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, who's going to take us, who's going to kick this off and get us going.
Good afternoon, morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here with you today. You know, the Chicago Urban League commends Representative Ford and Congressman Davis for establishing this day as the first Illinois Citizens Reentry Day, July 3rd. And so we think that this is an ongoing effort to give people with criminal records a chance, and the second chance in the state of Illinois. So I think we should give that a round of applause. A criminal record is a formidable barrier for people as they return to their communities. And we see it every day. We see options lost. We know that it prevents people from securing safe and stable housing, education and occupational training, gainful employment, and what's more, due to the criminalization of poverty, mental health, and substance use, people enter and leave our criminal justice system lacking access to mental health, health care, social services, treatment programs, and the root cause of really what's going on in their lives is not being addressed. As a society, we have made a choice to arrest and incarcerate for the struggles people face. It doesn't have to be this way. These issues are particularly important to the League because historically and currently mass incarceration has impacted hardest the people and the communities that we serve. And we stand beside them and represent them. I could show you report after report detailing how and why Chicago's black communities have long suffered from this wildly disproportionate rates of arrest, sentencing, and incarceration. For instance, African Americans make up 15% of Illinois' population, but they make up a whopping 60% of our prison population. The criminal justice system has clearly embraced black Chicagoans, but we need the housing, financial, and educational systems to work and embrace them just as well. Thanks to the tireless work of committed advocates like Representative Ford and Congressman Davis, we are on a path towards a smarter, more compassionate, and more effective reentry system in Illinois. Yet more work remains to be done. In order for Illinois residents with criminal backgrounds to have a true second chance, we must take a two-pronged approach. Remove the barriers that prevent people from getting their lives back on track, and provide them with the resources and services that are necessary to succeed. Again, the Chicago Urban League is proud to stand in support of Citizens Reentry Day in Illinois, and we will continue to fight for a better future for people with criminal records, for Chicago's black communities, and for all Illinoisans. So thank you. And I would like to welcome George A.H. Williams to the microphone. He's from the Treatment Alternative for Safer Communities.
Well, let's go to the next person. We're going to call Clifton Booney McFlowers up from Street Intervention Specialist, Bill Borders, Urban Involvement and Leadership Development.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a formerly incarcerated, a returning citizen, and I come from the Austin community. And we got to, as a community, we got to come back together for us, the neighborhood. See, what we got is hoods. We the only people in America with hoods. And what I'm saying is that we got to bring the neighbor back into the hood so we become a neighborhood again. Therefore, we can start caring for ourselves, and our kids can start caring for each other. They can stop all this killing out there in the streets. And us as returning citizens, got to stand up, because in prison, when we in prison, we are the most violent, not violent, but we stand up for stuff. When we get out here, we forget how to fight, man, and fight for the right stuff. This place should be crowded with formerly incarcerated people, man. Ain't no reason why it should be an empty seat here. That's right. In this place, because there's so many of us out here, but we could get together for the wrong thing, but we need to stand up for what's right, man. And it don't take a whole lot for us to do that. Right. Just a little participation, man, to show the next generation. Because it ain't about, like what Benny Lee said earlier, it ain't about us anymore. It's about them, about the brothers and sisters that's coming home, to have them to knock some of these barrels down that we was faced with. You know, and that's all I got. But I would like y'all to look, I'm informally incarcerated, right? And also, after I got out of prison, I served my time, 27 years and 9 months. When I come home, they put me on 3 years house arrest. I completed that. Then they hit me with another sentence. They asked me for registration for a convicted murder. I got to do that for 10 years. So what am I wrong and am I rights begin? I'm saying every time I jump over one hurdle, they come up with something else. So for the life I can't understand what's the purpose of the registry, especially when you're talking about, you don't did all your time, I paid my debt. If I paid my debt, then why I'm studying getting punished for it? Right. You know, so with the registry, ain't no way that's right or by law. It shouldn't be lawful. I don't know who bright idea that was to come up with that. But they need to rethink that and come up with something better, because that ain't helping us at all. That's just putting more barrels in front of us.
Okay, our next speaker is Eileen Quintana, the Executive Director of Institute of Public Safety, Elena, and Public, he just threw me off, I apologize, Social Justice, okay, at the Alder University.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. I know that these voices are so important because at any given time in our state, there are 48,000 people that are locked up who basically have no voice, and we don't see them. They are hidden. There are thousands of more people that are under supervision, who are locked away, and who are quieted. And so it is so important to think about what kind of lifelong burden these people face when trying to come back and reestablish their lives within the mainstream. There are really two schools of thought. One is that the system is created to do exactly what it does, and that is to chew up lives and to demolish them. We take whole families and communities with us. I am so hoping that that school of thought is not the only one, and that the goodness of people and that a dedication to justice can prevail. Whether or not a sense of justice prevails depends upon us, and it depends upon people understanding that this is not just about people who have, done, if you do the crime, you do the time. Let me tell you something. The way that our reentry system is now, the way that our criminal justice system is, it's society that is doing the crime, right? We need to be accountable to everybody in our state, because now we have hundreds of thousands of people whose lives and whose communities and whose families hang in the balance of these decisions. And guess what? All of us pay for these bad decisions. All of us. Even people who are saying you do the crime, you do the time, you're paying for it too. And we need to change this system. We've all been disenchanted with the budgeting process, and I really felt like a bright spot of this administration was going to be criminal justice reform. There is the Governor's Commission on Criminal Justice Reform and Criminal Justice and Sentencing Reform, and I'm very honored to be a commissioner on that body. We worked very hard for 2 years to come up with a report to really substantively make changes in people's lives and in communities for our state. And guess what? Like a lot of legislation that happens in Illinois, not much has happened. Even the reforms that have changed, things like, Can we get people IDs in prison? They're there, can they come out? It's a huge barrier for them to get an ID. Even though that has supposedly passed, they have to have all their documentation in prison before they can be eligible for getting an ID. Can't we arrange for that to happen? So my point is, don't make reform without making real reform. And we need to really raise our voices very high for everybody to be heard, because guess what? We are throwing money away for a horrible system. And so, no matter what side you're on, our commitment to safer communities is a commitment to successful reentry. Our commitment to safer communities is our commitment to true criminal justice reform. Stop faking, start making it happen.
Thank you. Next, I want to bring up Father Tom. We're going off the agenda to say a few words, something we should have done from the beginning.
It's an honor to be here. It's a privilege to be here, to stand amongst people who stand for something, who stand for that voice that we need to hear. I'm also honored to be LaShawn Ford's state representative, LaShawn Ford's pastor. And since I've been here, he and I have been texting. I'm asking him, did you pass the budget yet? And he hasn't answered me. He says, how many people are there? What's going on? Did you get started? I know he really wanted to be here, and that's everybody's saying. He believes in this. He stood for these things. I'm not lifting up any person, but we need leaders to lift up the cause, and that's why we're here. And all I want to say is this. I had the privilege of serving in Lawndale for 20 years and now Austin for 4 years. And it's broken my heart with the number of people that re-enter but have nowhere to go. We all try to start programs, but we know it's the consciousness of our country. It's the, people, a lot of talk lately about morals. People are talking about the moral, all right, the president said it. The morals of the city of Chicago. Well, look at your moral leaders right now. Look at the voice of justice right now saying, hey, we all make mistakes. But why is it some people get the privilege of being able to walk away from their mistakes while others have to relive their sentences each and every day? Was I supposed to pray or was I supposed to talk?
I got a text, call you up.
Call me up, well, yeah. But if we are people of faith, we know that God throughout history has offered reconciliation and forgiveness and restoration. So let us embrace that idea and let us demand it here within our society. We have some very talented people who unfortunately have gotten caught in this web and have not been allowed to be free. Let's free them. Isn't that what Independence Day is all about? It's justice for all, not justice for some. Amen? I'm through. Let's just do this. Enough talk.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bennett Lee, Executive Director of National Association for the Empowerment of the Formerly Incarcerated.
All right, okay.
All right, Rep.
All right, anybody feel any greatness in this room?
Yeah.
All right, anybody feel any kind of greatness in this room?
Yeah.
All right, is there any individual out there feel like you got some greatness in you?
Yeah.
All right, why don't you just stand to your feet and say, I got some greatness in me.
That's right.
I got some greatness in me. You know what Frederick Douglass said, that if there's no struggle, there can be no progress. And it was the late Harold Washington said that black people just don't struggle, we endure hardships. How many of y'all believe you got the ability to endure hardships? Because these are some trying times we're facing right now. All right, but see, have it in your heart and believe that you know what hard times are, and this ain't it right now. Because we done come a mighty long way. All right, but I would charge you to leave here today empowered, inspired, and motivated to do some work. Because the work got to be done on the grassroots level. You got to be ready to join an organization that exists, a movement that exists. There's a national movement, formerly incarcerated and convicted people movement, and that's the website you can go on. It's a movement. And I urge all formerly incarcerated and convicted persons and their families to become part of that movement. And I'm going to leave you with this. Together we travel in search of ourselves, no longer chasing illusions beyond our grasp, but regaining our abandoned ideas, using distorted images of what a man should be. We have traveled a road to bondage, our bodies in jail and our souls in hell. But now, with faith and determination, we walk back into a world in which we let defeat us. With our eyes open wide, we see the path we must take. But as men and women, we know we may stumble, but with the strength of a lion and the will of an ant, we will meet and overcome all obstacles. Because our shield against adversity will be patience, respect, and an understanding of ourselves, because we will succeed in search of ourselves. Shake a hand and make a friend.
Okay, next we have the GO reentry speaker coming up.
Hi, I'm Sonia Davis. I'm program manager for GO Reentry, and we're going to have one of our participants share what they need in the community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Frank Swaz. I'm with GO Reentry at 2650 West Fulton.
Speak up a little bit, brother. Don't be
My name
embarrassed.
is Frank Swaz. I'm with GO Reentry on Fulton Avenue.
What's up, Frankie?
What's up? So I just wanted to say that I am reentry, and we are real people with real needs, and we need to find a way to bridge the gap between just a basic flyer to a summit and the actual needs and services provided, to where the networking actually becomes a reality, not just go online and fill out an application when they're asking people to upload a resume immediately. And most people that are re-entered have not even began to comprehend what it is to create a resume. More so, I have no problem washing dishes and starting from the bottom, but it's really important to have an ability to get some paid skilled training to become competitive in today's workforce, so we aren't a burden on the economy, so we aren't a burden on the state or the family. I mean, more so, a minimum wage job is fine for anybody entering. It's fine for everyone to start. And I'm extremely proud to say that I get a chance to start over. But I'd really like a competitive edge to where it matters, to where my family is just so proud that I've changed everything. I mean, above all, reentry is so me and so all of us. I mean, everybody's had to start over somewhere. And with that, I just want to say thank you for this chance.
Now, see, those are the stories that we want to hear, right? We want to make sure we get these stories out. Once again, thank you for everyone who took the time out of their day to come here. Every one of you mean the world to me, and I'm quite sure everyone that's standing here. This is something that's very powerful and needed, and we need you guys. So we're going to bring up next Westside Health Authority, Ms. Quintana Bell, and move this along as fast as we can.
Hi, I'm Kiwana Bell. I'm the COO of Westside Health Authority, and Westside Health Authority runs a one-stop shop for reentry in the Austin community. Yes. It is one of our most highly sought services. We see around 3,000 people every year for reentry wraparound support services, and with additional resources, we could probably see about 6,000. We have a waiting list to see job counselors, because when people come home from prison, they need a place to reintegrate. They need a place to come where they can get some support and get back on the right track. I'm also a proud member of the Good Neighbor campaign in Austin. Good Neighbors. The Good Neighbor campaign seeks to build a community by connecting residents and connecting neighbors on shared values of love and coming together and being there for each other. And one of I'm happy to be up here this morning representing the Good Neighbor campaign, because we recognize that we have a lot of neighbors who are returning citizens who need support. And we know that these are our fathers, these are our brothers, these are our sons, and they are important to our community. And we have to be there. These are also our mothers and our daughters.
Right, right.
And we know that, the state, we spend over $30,000 a year to incarcerate one person. Our program calls for about $2,600 to support one person. $30,000 versus $2,600. The Illinois recidivism rate is over 52% right now. Our recidivism rate is less than 10%, which shows you that having resources and connections for returning citizens once they return home is important. And it's a smart investment for Illinois to do. And we're here together to stand and say we need to do that. Now, the Bible tells us that we are to love our neighbors as ourselves. It says, love our neighbors, not judge our neighbors. And so the Good Neighbor campaign is here today to say that we are here to support our returning citizens and our neighbors who are coming home, because we know that it takes a village, and we're all one village. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to ask Roy Flowers, the chairman of the 8th District Reentry Program, to come up and speak.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Good morning. As she said, I'm Roy Flowers, the chairman of the 8th District Reentry Committee. I work with Representative Ford, and what we really want to work on is preventing the incarceration as well. So we want to work on programs to stop people from going to jail. See, in Austin, one of the biggest reasons that I think that people end up incarcerated is because of drugs. So if we could get the drugs out of the community, we really believe that that could reduce the amount of people that go to jail. We have certain people, I ain't gonna mention no names, they're in Springfield lobbying to get more time for individuals that have been convicted. But if them same person, not to mention no name, could lobby on just helping reduce the crime by getting rid of the drugs, I think it'll make a major difference. Now, me, myself, I've been incarcerated, been out over 15 years, but every time I've been to jail, it was due to my usage or trying to sell drugs. So at 20 years clean right now, I don't go to jail anymore. Thank you. So, we just want, and then while people are in jail, we need more programs to help them get ready for the outside. Like they used to have schools in jail. I was in there, I took advantage of some programs, got a degree, got a barber's license, I'm a licensed barber. And it was because of a program that was in there that I used, and we need more programs like that so we could be more employable when we get out, so. That's just what we're working for, and I keep it concise so we could keep on. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Jean Vollen-Katz, Executive Director, John Howard Association of Illinois.
Thank you. I want to start by thanking Congressman Davis and Representative Ford for putting together this event and, more importantly, creating Illinois Reentry Day. It's hugely important. I want to focus on something that we heard a formerly incarcerated individual mention that I think is so important. Not only do we need to create a network of support for reentry for people leaving prison when they leave, we need to give them what they need to succeed while they're in prison. And until we can treat people with humanity and dignity, and until we can give them the skills they need, education, job skill acquisition, learning how to write a resume, learning how to interview, learning how to take care of oneself in terms of basic financial management, until we can give people the treatment, the help, the support, and the care that they need when they're inside of prison, we cannot expect them to have what they need to succeed when they leave. And it is so important that we understand that we can't ask people to be better when they leave if we're not willing to help them get there. It is our job to do that. It is our job to help them get what they need. If we expect people, and we should expect people, and we should hope that they will do better when they leave prison than they did before they went in. But until we, the state of Illinois, steps up and says that that is part of our job, and we need to give people what they need. We need to make sure that when they walk out those doors, they have more than $10 and an outfit that only looks slightly different than what they've been wearing in prison. They need a state ID. They need job opportunities. They need stable housing. They need support for their families so that they can support the returning individuals. And that's not something that we should take lightly. That's something that we should focus on. If we want to keep people out of prison, if we want to reduce that rate of recidivism, it is our job to give people that, and not just as they walk out the doors, while they are inside. And if we don't, if they cannot succeed, then we don't succeed. All right? Their failure is our failure. And we need to step up and take that responsibility seriously, and we need to hold our elected officials responsible for making that happen. That's on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ben Riddell, staff attorney, ACLU of Illinois.
I'd also want to echo previous speakers and thank Representative Ford and Congressman Davis. My name is Ben Riddell. I'm from the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. I'm the Criminal Justice Reform Project Director at that organization. And what I do is lobby the legislature in Springfield to push forward good criminal justice policies and work against bad ones, which there are a lot of bad ones to work against. As Dr. Quintana mentioned, our criminal justice system is broken, and I could talk to you all day and all week about the things that we need to do to fix it. But in the short time I have, I want to talk to you about one particular thing, and it's a bad policy that we're seeking to correct. Illinois currently has a law called unlawful street gang contact, and this law pertains only to people on parole, probation, or on pretrial release on bond. And what it says is if they are associating, however innocently, with a person who's a gang member, according to the definition in the law, they can be arrested and convicted of a new Class A misdemeanor. And thousands of people in the city of Chicago get arrested. They typically spend a few nights in county, and they're either charges are dropped, they take a new conviction on time served, or they're not charged in the first place. But what does happen is they're spending several nights or more in jail in the middle of their reentry. For what? For living in their own neighborhoods, for associating with the people who live in those neighborhoods. If you live on the south side of Chicago or the west side in certain neighborhoods, I defy you to live in your community and not associate somehow with a person who meets this definition of a gang member. So what this law would do, and the bill is House Bill 3803, sponsored by Representative Kelly Cassidy and Senator Toy Hutchinson, is correct this law and make it sure that if somebody's going to be arrested, a parolee is going to have their whole reentry disrupted and be taken away from their family and jailed when they're trying to get back into society. They better be doing something wrong, not just associating with the people in their community. That is a counterproductive policy. It enables and encourages racially discriminatory, harassing policing that doesn't make people safer. It damages the relationship between communities and the police. So what I'd ask you all to do today, and I thank you all for being here, so it's great to see all these people here on July 3rd who thought this was an important place to be, is take the time to call the governor, write to the governor, email the governor, and ask him to sign House Bill 3803. This is a very small step forward, but it's a thing that we can do to stop the active harm that we're doing to throw barricades up in front of people who are trying to re-enter after leaving prison. So thank you again.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Reverend Doris Green, founder and CEO of Men and Women in Prison Ministry. And she has a speech, and she says she's going to read it, okay? Reverend Green, give it up for Reverend Green.
Okay.
The hardest working woman in the city.
Praise the Lord. Assalamu alaikum. Hotep. Abari Gandhi. Praise the Lord. My name is Reverend Green. Of course, I wrote this piece, so I got to say it. I am the CEO of Men and Women in Prison Ministry, and I'm also the wife of Michael Smith, who passed away in 2011 from bone cancer in prison. He did 29 years. And a lot of you remember me out advocating for his freedom. He's free at last, but he's not home with me. He's in heaven with our forefathers or whoever. But he died in prison, inside prison, because of the health care that he was not receiving. But I'm here today to talk a little bit about a program that we have at Men and Women in Prison Ministries. We have lots of programs, but one in particular, since it's been brought up. The majority of the formerly incarcerated men and women return to major metropolitan areas with minimum planning for transitioning from prison to communities. Most people find themselves without state identification after incarceration because their previous documentation expired or was lost or damaged while they were incarcerated. State-issued identification is required to assist social services, housing, and employment. You have to have a state identification. People returning from incarceration rarely have access to birth certificates and social security cards, which are frequently required for obtaining state identification. You gotta have those pieces of information. And the process of occurring such documentations can be daunting and costly for the formerly incarcerated. Obtaining state identification is necessary to begin successful reintegration into the community and reduce the likelihood of recidivism. Without state identification, new citizens will face significant barriers for success in reentry. In 2016, Men and Women in Prison Ministry was funded to issue 600 state identifications and 300 birth certificates. At the end of the contract period, Men and Women had issued 770 state identifications. Now, where did the money come? We only got money for 600, but we had to submit because the people keep coming. The people keep coming out of prison. They come into our agency because they know we will serve them. So we went out and hustled and got that money to make sure we didn't have to close our programs. I went to my funder that funded for this program, and I told her I saw the impact of so many people coming. Can you please give us more money? You know what she told me to do? She said, shut your program down at the end of the month. I said, I'm not going to do it. And we have never did it. That program is running right now today, and only manna from heaven is making it happen. Currently, there is no identification restoration services provided on the west side of Chicago. We do service on the south side of Chicago at IIT building. People from the west side are not coming over to the south side to get IDs from us. We would like to expand our identification restoration service within the region of the west side of Chicago, therefore widening our reach and accessibility to the reentry population. Men and Women in Prison Ministry need your support in making the expansion a reality. Please help us, because we want to continue this work, and we're going to continue this work. And I close with this saying that I used to say in the prison all the time. Some brothers here knew me back then. I am because you are, and because you are, therefore I am. I am because you are, and because you are, therefore I am. Thank you.
Patricia Jones is our next speaker. Is she here? Okay, so our next speaker will be Marlon Chambers from Force. He's an organizer, Community Renewal Society.
Good afternoon. Once again, my name is Marlon Chamberlain, and I'm an organizer of an initiative called the Force Project, which is an acronym that stands for Fighting to Overcome Records and Create Equality. Since my short time at Force, we've passed 4 bills, actually 5 bills, one that helped expand ceiling eligibility. The other 4 were removing lifetime barriers to employment in the public school system in the Park District. One of them dealt with the healthcare registry system as far as how that system is set up, and the other one dealt with forcible felonies in regards to licensing. So for an example, I had a friend who had a conviction from when he was in high school. After that conviction, he served his time, he went back to school, he paid for his tuition, he did everything he was supposed to do, and he became a registered nurse. And in 2011, because of the actions of 2 doctors, the unintended consequences of a law that was created because of the behavior of 2 doctors, he was barred and his license was revoked. It had nothing to do with convicting felons, but his license was removed. And so we worked for several years for a bill, it was SB 42, that would reinstate his license. And a couple of months ago in this very building, Dwight Young and another individual were the first 2 individuals in the state of Illinois that had their license reinstated. This year, we worked on a bill that would also expand ceiling eligibility, and this year we specifically and intentionally didn't try to exclude violent convictions. And so this bill is currently sitting on the governor's desk, HB 2373, and what it would do is it would give a person an opportunity to go in front of a judge to ask the judge to have their record sealed after 3 years of them being home from prison, which I still don't believe is fair, because I believe that after an individual serves their time, they should be able to move on with their life. But what I've also learned in this political process is that Illinois is one of the most difficult states to move legislation in. And I just want to give a shout out to LaShawn Ford and others that are championing and fighting for us in Springfield. And so I would ask today that if you can, whether you send an email or a phone call, please contact the governor's office to ask him to sign HB 2373, because this is a bill that would help a lot of people in Illinois that have convictions. And then I just want to leave this. There are currently, right now, 4 million people in the state of Illinois with criminal records. 4 million people. And if we can somehow begin to mobilize those 4 million people to fight for a lot of this work that we're talking about today, it wouldn't be about us asking, but we can begin to demand that the state of Illinois moves and changes things. Thank you.
Now, this is great, right? This is great. We want to bring our next speaker, George A.H. Williams, Vice President of Community and Government Affairs, Treatment Alternatives for Safer Communities.
Good afternoon. That wasn't the police, was it? I'm sorry. Excuse me, let me stop. Let me say, I'm charged with, to do a couple of things here. One is that Congressman Danny K. Davis is the co-convener of this event today, and he's unable to get here due to an unexpected event that arose this morning. So I want to, and then of course we know that our other leader, State Representative LaShawn Ford, is in Springfield, and they was up in the late hours this morning trying to get a budget passed. And I've been on the phone with him as well this morning, and he's not able to be here. And so I will, you know, when someone said I'm not here to honor a man or a person, well, I am. I mean, I'm here to honor Congressman Danny K. Davis, as well as State Representative LaShawn Ford, for the work that they've done, that they're doing, and that they will do. Because I've come to believe that when you talk about changing the conscience of a country and of a community and then of an individual, in the years I've been on this planet, there's been a few things I've found out, 2 things that's been very important in making that happen. And one is God, my God, the God that I serve, and 2 is politics. Because politics control your lives, our lives, from the time we get here to the time that we leave here, and has every influence in the laws, the practices of a country. So I want to read, and let me say this, today is an extremely historic day. Today has been declared and established and signed into law Citizens Reentry Day, July the 3rd of 2017. Now think about that. This is reentry day in the state of Illinois. Who would have thought it?
Who would have thought? That's true.
So we won't play past that. And let's look at what that really says. It says that Citizens Reentry Day, July the 3rd of each year, is designated as Citizens Reentry Day to be observed in recognition of Congressman Danny K. Davis' work in helping to provide ex-offenders with a second chance and opportunity to re-enter society as productive citizens. And don't play past that word citizens. That is extremely important in this movement when we talk about men and women trying to change their destiny. The one universal language that everybody acknowledges across every aisle is the word citizen. And sometimes we forget the fact that we are an American citizen. And to encourage continuing support of such citizens, there it is again. It didn't say as, it doesn't say in support of such returning citizens or ex-offenders. It says in support of such citizens as they re-enter their communities and also within their respective selves. Now, to the congressman, let me tell you what Congressman Danny K. Davis done for some of us that don't know and some of us that do know. In 2008, April the 9th, he passed what I believe would be one of the most important pieces of legislation in the past 100 years. And that was the Second Chance Act of America. And that is when the U.S. Congress declared that men and women in this country that found themselves traveling through, by whichever means that it came about, traveling through the criminal justice system and coming back to their respective communities, that we say, the members of Congress says, that they deserve a second chance. Now, what is the importance of that? It's not just the bill, the Second Chance Act, to which it is up right now for reauthorization, meaning that to be refunded, and it was celebrated all across the country on April the 9th, all types of events around the country and in the world as well. It's not just the bill. Dr. Martin Luther King, when he gave his speech, when he received the Nobel Prize Award in 1963, he said something that was very important about the movement, the civil rights movement. And he said that one of the unspoken actions that took place in the movement was the fact that if we didn't change public opinion about the plight and the disadvantages at that time of the American Negro, the movement would fail. And so this today, by being declared Reentry Day for the first time in the history of this state, is working towards changing and influencing public opinion about the plight of men and women coming out of the criminal justice system. And everybody in this room needs to be applauded for being here and the work that you will do and the work that you're going to do. Thank you.
Great. And once again, we want to make sure that we give recognition to our elected officials who couldn't be here today. July 3rd is really something that holds dearly to all our hearts and, of course, theirs. Congressman Danny Davis, co-organizer. Representative LaShawn K. Ford, organizer. Senator Matty Hunter, State Representative Camille Lilly, Representative Mary Flowers, Commissioner Howard Melody Sr. And we're going to bring up Quinn Rollins from Poverty Law. I'm looking for him because I'm trying to make sure before I said it he didn't leave. Please come up, Quinn. Community Justice Health Center Justice Attorney, Shriver Center, National Center on Poverty Law. Great young man who's doing fabulous work.
Repeat after me. Say return, with resources. Say return, with resources. In my opinion, citizens should be returning to their communities with more than a bus ticket from Statesville. We must embed in our communities that receive our returning citizens resources like mental health, job training, and actual jobs. In the last 10 years alone, the mental health budget in Illinois for the General Revenue Fund has been cut by 50%. has been cut by 50%, from nearly 360 million to 180 million. How do you expect organizations to operate? These very resources could prevent folks from entering incarceration in the first place. Between 50 and 70% of individuals in the criminal justice system enter with a mental health condition. It hasn't been screened, hasn't been diagnosed. Resources mean not merely being embraced by the lines in our speeches, but by the line items in our budgets. Every year, hundreds of citizens return from prison. The question isn't whether they're ready for us, or whether we're ready for them.
All right. Hey.
Now, please listen to these stats, because this is what makes us move forward and want to continue and do more work. Okay, Lori Jo Reynolds, Assistant Professor, University of Chicago, Illinois. Okay. Lori wants to be generous and give Tammy Bond the mic. Volunteer Coordinator for Illinois Voices for Reform.
All right.
Thank you. I'm also, I'm from Champaign, so I came up here to represent the rest of the state, I guess. But I also work for a reentry organization in Champaign called First Followers. But recently we've read this book by Susan Burton, Becoming Miss Burton, which demonstrates page by heart-wrenching page why reentry reform is needed and needed much sooner rather than later. Reentry reform should encompass all formerly incarcerated and convicted people and not just select individuals. Everyone has a right to provide for themselves and their families basic human needs, not just people that don't have criminal histories. In chapter 20 of Ms. Burton's book, she titled the chapter, "The Wall of No." And she states 65 million Americans with a criminal record face a total of 45,000 collateral consequences that restrict everything from employment, professional licensing, child custody rights, housing, student aid, voting, and even the ability to visit an incarcerated loved one. Many of these restrictions are permanent, forever preventing those who've already served their time from reaching their potential in the workforce as parents and as productive citizens. Along with that, American Bar Association President William C. Hubbard stated, the result is that these collateral consequences become a life sentence harsher than whatever sentence a court actually imposed upon the conviction. Embrace the genuine essence of community. Support the cause for reentry and see your neighborhoods come together peacefully, grow collectively, and flourish considerably.
Thank you. Demel Hanna is our next speaker.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm a little taller. All right. Yes, I want to commend both Danny Davis and LaShawn Ford. Good men should be commended for good works. I want to be like this brother.
Amen.
I want to be like that brother. I did 18 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit. I got locked up 2 days for my 18th birthday. Went to Stateville, grown men in Stateville. You know, you could lose your humanity, you know, in prison, because you see so much gruesomeness, right? And nobody, I mean, that's how prison is bred. I mean, you know, it's a violent culture, you know, so you could really lose your humanity in prison. You know, I was in Pontiac segregation, and you know, they was coming around feeding us. So I go to the door, And guy, I heard him slip the tray in, but I'm looking for the tray. I'm like, where's the tray? You know, I'm thinking that it's right here. This is typically how they build the doors. The tray was like, I had to stick my hand inside, go under. I'm like, what the hell is this, man? So the way they built the door in Pontiac is because some guys with mental illnesses, they use their urine as a weapon. So they don't care that you're not one of those people. They'll put you in a door like that, behind a room like that. So, you know, what that does to the psyche, right? Over time, you'll lose your humanity. Now, I did 18 years, as I say. I was able to maintain, you know, my sanity while I was in prison through education. You know, got my GED, 2 college certificates, got my degree, because I knew that was going to be, you know, the way that I could navigate out here in this new society. But a lot of people didn't do that while they was in prison, but they out. 3 individuals, we all got out in the same month, both of them back. They back. I've been out 14 months. So I think the most important thing we need besides jobs and shelter, we need clinical assistance. We need some real clinical assistance because we're dealing with some real issues. You know what I'm saying, that we experience inside of those warehouses, you know. So I think that's, you know, if they can include that in the budget, it's imperative. Because they had me do a mental evaluation, but it was one session. He was like, oh, man, you know how to articulate your words, you good. I'm like, okay, whatever. And registration, real fast, briefly. I didn't know about no registration. Only registration I knew about was sex offender registration. So when I got out, I made contact with my second parole agent. She was like, did you register? I'm like, I'm not a sex offender, no. She like, no, you got to register on the violent murder registry. I'm like, what the hell is that? She like, well, you better get up there because you're in violation. You've been out 45 days. I'm like, well, you better come with me because nobody informed me of that upon release. So I went up there. I didn't register that day. I registered like 2 days later, but they made me pay a fee. They like, you got money? I'm like, money for what, man? They're like, you got to pay. I'm like, I got to pay to register? They like, yeah. So I paid $25. I just had to renew my registry. Like the brother said, we on registration for 10 years. I paid $25 last year. I paid $100 this year. Yeah, they made me pay $100. Wow. Now, what if I'm not employed? How am I going to pay? If I can't pay, I'm in violation. So this is what's going on. And I'm just so fortunate to be here to be able to speak in front of y'all. And I appreciate Lori. I appreciate her. I appreciate her. I'm going to give her a big hug. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Butter Jones, Inmate for Change, founder and CEO.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to make this quick. I know we're time conscious. Benny said his leg's about to give out on him. I, too, am a convicted felon. I'm a 4-time convicted felon. I've been arrested 53 times since my 21st birthday, and I've been in rehab 6 times. I've been home 7 years now successfully. I have not been rearrested or reincarcerated, and this is through thinking. Inmates for Change is dedicated to breaking the bondage of destructive thinking, and that's what has to be considered in the equation when we're putting variables together to find a solution for these multiple problems that are facing us as we're trying to reenter. And what we're talking about are critical thinking skills. We're thinking about interpersonal interaction. There's a spiritual connectedness, God consciousness, that must be integrated in any reentry services program. We also have to understand that the individual, whether he's got education or not, he's got this stigma of being a convicted felon. So even though we've got a House bill now that says because I grew up in Inglewood and I know these guys for 35 years, I can't go shake their hand standing on the street corner, something is wrong. Something is wrong. This room needs to be bursting at the seams. What we're failing to find is the translation to get this information out in a timely fashion. We need to be talking now about next year's 2nd annual reentry summit. We need to be talking about it now. And we need to be getting out there in the trenches where these individuals are, walking up on these young brothers and sisters and giving them this information so that they can be at least aware of what's going on. We cannot sit and wait for the power to reach back and say, well, you know, you've been waiting so long, I think I'm gonna give you a pat on your back. Benny came to the podium earlier and said he's been home 32 years, and he still has to write, yes, I've been convicted of a felony. We have to find another way to meet this thing halfway. Marlon Chambers got in here and he said, yeah, listen, we need to give it to them right now. But we know that they're not gonna do that right now. So we might wanna consider a timeline. When do my rights end and when does my wrong begin, or the other way around? I get it sometimes twisted because they've got it twisted. And that's what the thing is. If I've done my time, if I've also served my term and successfully completed it, why can't I be given my re-entry and return citizenship? So what we have to understand is going through this thing is that it's allowed in the thinking. We've got to prepare ourselves one day at a time because it's not going to happen overnight, but it can happen. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And if we've missed anyone, if you have any comments or any stories that would like to be told, we ask you to please come up here now. Thank everyone who stood up here through this long process. You can now leave the stage. If you have anything that you would like to give State Representative LaShawn K. Ford or Congressman Danny K. Davis, you can do so to T.O. standing over there. Any stories, any organizations that we missed, you can come up at this particular point and say your piece for this, because this is about your organization and the people that you serve.
First of all, I want to give honor to
2
God.
minutes.
I'll take 1:59. First of all, I wanted to give honor to God. Thank God for this opportunity. This is my 50th anniversary, by the way, for working in the community. I was 11 years old, 1967, the Wall of Respect. So here's my position to ex-offenders, each and every one of you all. Ex-offenders has got to stop playing this game that we playing, waiting on somebody to bring us something. They ain't gonna bring you, so you need to stop waiting on them. 1967, I was involved in the community as the Wall of Respect, the Wall of Truth. I started breakdancing here, managed them. I'm doing baseball in Washington Park, in Jackson Park. I'm involved in politics. So what have I learned in my 50 years? That ain't nobody gonna give you nothing. Stop running around here talking about you want something here, you don't get it. So what you need to do is do like I did. I was a bad boy, I learned how to dance, I learned how to manage, I learned how to coordinate. I created my own enterprise, I created my own salary. I don't ask nobody for nothing. Ron and Manu, them can keep their money. I ain't part of no new leadership, I ain't part of none of that. God put me here, he sent me in jail to save my life. He did a great job. I'm still working. So ex-offenders, stop asking people for something they're not going to give you. And thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcus Knight. I'm the Director of Programs with an organization called Freedom House Reentry Education and Employment Corporation. And so, just to be very quick, what we notice is that when people are coming back into the community, when they're returning citizens or formerly incarcerated, they're in need of support. And some people have it at home, some people don't. Some people have people that are there to support them and provide them with jobs and help them find housing and whatever else that they need, and some people don't have it. And so, what our organization does is not new. It's more or less how we do it. So when people are reentering the community, we provide them with the cell phone. And through the cell phone, we have a patented app called the Get Help app. And through this application, people are able to call 24/7 to formerly incarcerated peer mentors to provide them with support and access to resources. We are in the process right now of pushing that program out. We have 200 phones right now waiting to be able to give to someone who's been formerly incarcerated that needs that support, and we're looking to make as many connections here as possible. So for any organization that's still here, please come and see me and talk to me. We're looking for males, we're looking for people who are 18 years and up, we're looking for individuals who have been on parole, 60 days or less. So we're looking to ramp up as early as August 1st. So if you're interested, if you know anybody that needs some help, some support, someone to talk to, access to resources, please come and speak to me afterwards. Thank you.
All right, peace and love, y'all. God bless. Thank you for coming out. Just to add to what was said today, we've had some excellent information on reentry and what happens and what must be done to help our people to get back into to help us get back into this society. I am, again, my name is Omar Yamini, and I work as an education consultant. And we help school districts to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline through warning and educating our young people to enhance their emotional intelligence so that they can identify the types of harmful influences that lead to prison in the first place. I was in prison 15 years for a crime I too, like the young brother who mentioned, didn't commit. I served 15 years on that 30-year sentence. What we do and what I do in particularly is to get engaged in our formerly incarcerated people's mind that we have to use our imagination. You have to use your creative intellect. One thing we did in prison to survive was to outthink those administrators. We had to run clandestine operations just to get basic human needs, okay? That has to continue out here because of the policies that our state has implemented on people. The thing is, we cannot go back into some of the old practices and behaviors. Men in the state of Illinois, the majority of us are sober, okay? That alcohol, the drugs wear off. So we are dealing with a population of men who are thinking properly and planning properly. So when we come home, we can continue those same practice skills that we used and utilize it. Now, this is a good time to come home. Okay, this is the 21st century. We're dealing with 21st century technology. You can get educated and create a service for yourself, period. One thing I cringe when I hear people understand that we have to go and take minimum wage jobs just to survive. That is not your job. That's something you are utilizing to survive. Whatever your purpose is, your definite purpose in your life, that is your job. Okay, so we have to get rid of the thinking that I'm going to continue to do servant work and prepare for your futures mentally. So one thing that I hope that we are impressing on the people who are on their way home, those of us who are in the prison ministries and do work inside the prison, encourage them to fill out their financial aid. That FAFSA, I filled out my FAFSA for my prison cell. And when I came home, my student aid was waiting for me. Did y'all hear me? It was waiting for me. I filled it out 6 months before I left the penitentiary. And when I came home, it was there. So I was able to usher into going to school. I was able to finish my bachelor's at USC. I'm now going into my master's degree at USC because of the financial taking advantage of what's available. Yes, there are barriers, but one thing you do is who cares? Keep it moving because you have to. The only thing, unless you're going to shrivel up and concede and die, okay? So, there's ways, it is available, it is a good time to come home using 21st century technologies and your imagination. So peace and love, we are going to continue to educate our children and our families on what must be done when you're dealing with a person who has served long-term imprisonment, because there are some mental issues, there are more roadblocks than mental issues. Some people have the mental issues, some have roadblocks that is preventing them from progressing as they should be. And that family and community support will help to break those barriers and for them to navigate through that. So peace and love, that is what I wanted to share with you today, and God bless.
Good afternoon. My name is Marlon Oglesby. I am Chairman of the Research Department for Men and Women in Prison Ministries and the Harm Reduction Prison Coalition. I'm also the Community Health Navigator for Men and Women in Prison Ministries and a HIV test counselor for Men and Women in Prison Ministries. But that's not what's important. What's important is I was incarcerated for 17 years for murder. And I came home with the blessing of a family that was able to take care of me and help me help me to deal with things. And if it wasn't for Reverend Green and Men and Women of Prison Ministries, I'd still be doing nighttime security. And the sad part is, it's a cash job. That would have been a cash job I'd still be doing. I can't get a paid job in this city because I had a lady at the public aid office told me if I wanted to get a job, leave the state. She said I could go to any of the surrounding states and get a job before I could get a job in the state of Illinois. And I'm proud to say I've been home since 2009. I have not repeated, I have not returned. I'm going to stay home, I'm going to stay free, I'm going to stay a man, I'm going to stay a young black man. I'm 50 years old, I'm still young, and I'm going to have a full life because I choose to stay free, regardless of what this state says. Amen.
Is there anybody else who didn't get a chance to speak? Well, thank everybody for coming out to our reentry day, the first annual reentry day here in the state of Illinois on July 3rd. Everybody have a safe 4th of July. I look forward to hearing about everybody and hearing from everybody next year on our 3rd of July. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep doing things so we can help out people to reenter into society. Thank you very much.